Intro. Come with me and let's explore the Aboriginal world of Dreamtime. I've been fascinated by the Aboriginals ever since I saw Peter's Weir movie, The Last Wave, for the first time in my life. I heard that didgeridoo. When I first heard that sound, my soul was captivated. Words can't describe the feelings I experienced inside. It was a sound so eerie and yet so comforting. I knew this sound. This sound was a part of me. I got much of my material from the above YouTube video, Journey into the Dreamtime, with Auntie Manya Andrews. I was blown away, both by the incredible sophistication of their ancient wisdom. Come with me and let's learn on this journey together. Last week, I just finished my book, Conscious Economics. It was about how the world must change our ways to survive as a species. I talked about the concepts of the indigenous people around the world and modern-day Western concepts of commercialism. There was a difference between night and day. From my inner well floated up a thought to write a book on Aboriginal Dreamtime. To be quite honest, I had a superficial bunch of ideas. I was always just skimming the surface. I heard about Aboriginal people going on walkabout. The great movie Crocodile Dundee talked about Aboriginals going on a walkabout. Once again, it was just at a surface level. The Aborigines have a concept called profane knowledge. Profane knowledge is knowledge acquired in the external world. This includes the good, bad, and ugly. All external knowledge lies in this category. The five senses are fully engaged. The analogy for this is bark on the tree. The bark is external. Sacred knowledge exists inside of the tree. This is where true wisdom resides. The world at large is mainly focused on the external. Take a look at modern-day politics in the United States. What is the truth is considered fiction. What is fiction is considered truth. The Aboriginals knew that the wood, the essence, exists inside of the tree. They have known this for over 100,000 years. They are the oldest existing society in the world. Their entire life is based upon acquiring inside wisdom. The entire universe is alive. The earth is alive. Recently, I read an incredible article that describes the nature of consciousness. It was talking about a term called panentheism. During the 1920s, Bertrand Russell came up with this term. It's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, a human body and mind, or is there an awareness beyond that? Is the universe aware and conscious? Is there a cosmic quantum soup of consciousness? Does a rock or a flower aware? Does consciousness require a form? How big or how small can the form be to be aware? Is dark matter aware? Is the sun in the sky aware? What denotes awareness? Some people think, which I also do, that the foundation of the universe is consciousness. The entire universe is aware. Before the Big Bang, consciousness existed. This is not the first time a universe was created, nor will it be the last time. Like the incoming of breath and the outflow of breath, the universe comes and goes. Granted, it takes billions of years, but still, that is a blink of an eye for eternity. In this article, they describe that even particles are alive and aware. These are part of a cosmic soup where everything is tied together. The entire universe is comprised of this soup. Imagine making a homemade soup. You blend it all together and combine milk or cream. Your family loves it. Now, can you take out a single ingredient? You can't. In the same way, there is a universal soup of consciousness which we are a part of. It is quantum. It is beyond time and space. We always think linearly. In the quantum world, the past, present, and future are blended together. There is a whole set of chaotic laws that we can't even conceive. Man thinks by using logic they can understand the quantum soup, but it's beyond logic and rational thinking. Personally, I think the great mystics got a piece of the puzzle. Not the entire puzzle, but a piece of the puzzle contains the whole puzzle. It's like a hologram. A small piece contains the entire piece of the puzzle. What if a person who meditates can be in a place where they are receptive to the inner light inside? Imagine this light is the same light as the quantum universe. Everything is part of this light. E equals mc squared. Everything is energy and light. Everything is alive and aware. Our Aboriginals have discovered this fact over 100,000 years ago. This concept is still alive at their core belief systems. Many modern-day scientists believe in this theory. The Aboriginal people have discovered the tree inside many moons ago. It is not a concept, but a reality. Aboriginal Dreamtime. The Dreamtime is an Aboriginal English word that describes a worldview, a philosophy, a way of life, as well as a religion. The most ancient eras of the Dreamtime describe the creation of the world, then the creation of all the different creatures that populate the world, and finally the creation of people. And there are also ancestor beings, heroes that traveled across the landscape, shaping, transforming it, and creating all the different creatures that now inhabit it. Paul Tackett, Australian Museum. The Dreamtime, 40,000 years of history. They say we have been here for 40,000 years, but it's much longer. We have been here since time began. We have come directly out of the Dreamtime of our creative ancestors. We have kept the earth as it was on the first day. Our culture is focused on recording the origins of life. We refer to forces and powers that created the world as creative ancestors. Our beautiful world has been created only in accordance with the power, wisdom, and intentions of our ancestral beings.
We are all visitors to this time, this place. We're just passing through. Our purpose here is to observe, to learn, to grow, to love, and then we return home. Our spirituality is a oneness and an interconnectedness with all that lives and breathes, even with all that does not live or breathe. Being Aboriginal is not the color of your skin, on how broad your nose is. It is a spiritual feeling, an identity you know in your heart. It is a unique feeling that is difficult for non-Aboriginal to fully understand. So I take this word, reconciliation, and I use it to reconcile people back to Mother Earth so they can walk this land together and heal one another, because she's the one that gives birth to everything we see around us, everything we need to survive. We cultivated our land, but in a different way from the white man. We endowed to live with the land. They seem to live off it. So I was taught to preserve, never to destroy. This earth I never damage, I look after. Fire is nothing, just clean up. When you burn, new grass coming up. That means good animals soon. Might be Ghana, possum, wallaby, burn 'em off. New grass coming up, new life all over. The land is my mother, like a human mother. The land gives us protection, enjoyment, and provides our needs, economic, social, and religious. We have a human relationship with the land, mother, daughter, son. When the land is taken from us or destroyed, we feel hurt because we belong to the land and we are part of it. Land is a central part of the connection to country and to identity as people. Many of our significant sites, landscapes, customs, and stories focus on connection to land. Land is therefore very important to our culture, history, and future. From time immemorial, we believe, as our Aborigine people, Australia has been here from the first sunrise. Our people have been here along with the continent with the first sunrise. We know our land was given to us by Balami. We have a sacred duty to protect that land. We have a sacred duty to protect all the animals that have an affiliation with through our totem system. Once you learn these 8 harsh realities of life, you'll be much stronger. The Aborigine sunrise ceremonies are very special to our people. It starts when the sky is black, beautiful black. When the sun's yellow circle arrives, it turns the sky red. This is why the Aborigine flag is half red, half black, with a yellow circle in the middle. At the sunrise ceremony, I meditate and ask the Great Spirit for direction. My hands fill with electricity. I touch you and you feel it too. I heal people this way. My grandmother did that too. I learned all about that when I was a young fellow. Umbara, the black duck, is a special totem of our tribe, the Yuin. We learn to respect the elders who hand on the law. The elders guard the law, and the law guards the people. This is the law that comes from the mountain. The mountain teaches the dreaming. Racism is a disease in society. We are all equal. I don't care what their color is or religion, just as long as they're human beings. They're my buddies. The more you know, the less you need. Traveler, there are no paths. Paths are made by walking. To us, health is about so much more than simply not being sick. It's about getting a balance between physical, mental, emotional, cultural, and spiritual health. Health and healing are interwoven, which means that one can't be separated from the other. At the sunrise ceremony, I meditate and ask the Great Spirit for directions. My hands fill with electricity. I touch you and you feel it. I heal people this way. My grandmother did that too. I learned all about this when I was a young fellow. We learned to respect the elders who hand on the law. The elders guard the law, and the law guards the people. This is the law that comes from the mountain. The mountain teaches the dream. Those who lose dreaming are lost may as well be here. We are as where we are. Keep your eyes on the sun, and you will not see the shadows.
Instructors. We all have teachers in our life. Some are good, and some probably shouldn't be teaching. The Aboriginal people have elders called wise men or wise women, clever men or clever women. Some tribes call them modern. They also have internal spirit guides. These can take place. These can take in many shapes, ways, and forms. The ancestors are dead. They've simply moved into another room in the mansion of life. These elders hold the sacred wisdom of the day. Unfortunately, much Aboriginal youth has lost the sacred wisdom. Western society and the ways of modern life encroached on their wisdom. Many youths were taught to ignore the past. The Kabbalah teaches about having your feet on the ground and your head in heaven. It seems like the sacred wisdom of their Aborigines to be kept alive, it must be shared with modern man. Many of their precepts of ecology and conservation are vital for humanity's survival. Every culture has something different and unique to contribute to the melting pot of life. The Aborigines have contributed for thousands of years. The survival of a culture is dependent upon the ancient wisdom carried forth into future generations. Let's hope and pray this ancient wisdom can morph and change where the wisdom is instilled in mankind. This is where we are heading. Spirit guides. All indigenous people around the world believe in spirit guides. The Aboriginals were no exception. The Western mindset is so busy focusing externally that we can't see the forest from the trees. We only see about 1% of the light spectrum. We have such limited sight. Our senses are dull. We have what I call cloudy vision. Only through silence can one develop inner sight. We have 5 external senses, yet we also have 5 internal senses. We were never taught this in school. You are the universe. You just don't know it. The Aborigines knew there is a web of consciousness tying us all together. Many Westerners have a concept: if I can't see it, I can't believe it. This is the mindset of modern man. Apathy comes into the picture, hearing about strange and different concepts. Ask any scientist who thinks outside of the box. They get mocked and ridiculed. Decades later, these concepts are proven to be correct and are acceptable and part of society. I believe we are in a stage of revolution of love. This is a bridge where peace and harmony will occur without any shots being fired. Going back to spirit guides, they are there all the time inside of you. You are never alone. Maybe, just maybe, you can learn to pay attention to the silence within you. The door is always open. Slow down. This ancient wisdom is all around you. We need to change our ways for humanity to survive. Seed language. Guari. Seed power. Only in extraordinary states of consciousness can one be aware of or attuned to the inner dreaming of the earth. Robert Lawler, Voices of the First Day. Everything starts as a seed. I mean, everything. The entire universe was created from a conscious seed. Everything is alive and conscious. Even that rock that stubbed your toe is conscious. Everything is alive. The Aboriginal looks at life from a different point of view. They aren't consumers of life. They are protectors of life. Big difference. Westerners think they are the king of the hill. Look at my intelligence. Well, if we are so smart, why do we have a plastic ocean the size of Texas in the Pacific Ocean? Why are we destroying the Amazon rainforest? What kind of supreme intelligence does that? We have these concepts that if a society lives in harmony with the earth for thousands of years, they don't have any wisdom. We mock them, take away their land, try to indoctrinate their children, put them on reservations, strip them of their rights, make them feel inferior. I could go on and on. Yet this seed exists inside and outside. It is internal and external. Western civilization, most of the time, is not aware of the inner garden. I talk about it numerous times. It is the foundation of my life. Yet many of my friends ask me, why do you talk about the inner garden? What inner garden? What are you talking about? There is no inner garden in my life. The following comes from the American Indians tribe of the Cherokee. Their Aboriginals might replace the animal wolf with a kangaroo, yet the essence is the same. An old Cherokee is teaching his grandson about life. A fight is going on inside me, he said to the boy. It is a terrible fight and is between two wolves. One is evil. He is angry, envy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilty, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. He continued, the other one is good. He is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. The same fight is going on inside you and inside every other person too. The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, which wolf will win? The old Cherokee simply replied, the one you feed. The same principles of growing a garden apply to growing an inner garden. Click on the picture to listen to my YouTube video called The Inner Garden. The wise man's journey is to cultivate the seeds of wisdom externally and internally. One begins to see a web of life tying us all together. The past, present, and future are all one. Harmony is all around, yet we don't have the eyes to see. The great mysteries are knocking on our doors, yet we are too busy texting on the freeway of life. We only see 1% of the light spectrum, yet we are convinced we see the whole picture. The entire universe is alive, and we are bickering with each other. We need Mother Nature. Mother Nature doesn't need us, yet we consume, and we have no end in sight. Who's the wise man, I say? What are the fruits of Western man when it comes to consumerism? This is from USA Today. The 3 richest billionaires in the US are measured by the annual Forbes 400 ranking, now own more wealth than the bottom half of the nation's population combined, according to the report by the Institute for Policy Studies, a research organization focused on inequality issues. There's something wrong with this picture. This is from Quartz. The average U.S. worker will need 10 times the length of all human history to earn as much as Jeff Bezos. Is this absurd or not? How much is enough? Clearly, the rich will never be satisfied. It's like a ghost drinking whiskey, and liquid flows right through them. The seeds of wisdom lie dormant inside of a man. Only you can cultivate your inner garden. Nobody can do it for you. This precious wisdom must be partaked for humans to be alive. Time is ticking away. We are like the ostrich, putting our heads in the sand and drinking our beer, as if our actions couldn't cause any catastrophic results. You know me, but you don't know me. I have many names. Some call me Gaia. Some call me Mother Nature. Some call me Panchakama. You have forgotten your connection with me. There was a time when we were in harmony with me. Nowadays, you've forgotten who you are and the connection you have with me. I am the mother of all on this earth. Many of the indigenous people around the world still have the connection with me. You call them primitive, yet they are highly advanced. You may have technology advanced, yet your spiritual and emotional growth is stunted. For thousands of years, you've been fighting wars with one another. You are sawing the branch that you sit on. Look at how you treat me. You have no respect. I'm not judging you. I just call a spade a spade. You are in the midst of one of the greatest transformations anywhere in the universe. It's happening right before you. Millions of people awaken up from their slumber. You're beginning to realize who you truly are. We are in the game together. You and I are one. I've been around for billions of years. And so has you. Yet today, you are still sleeping and are totally focused on getting by in life. Your ways are backwards. They don't work. Your mirror is cloudy. Every step you take, you are walking with me, yet you are oblivious to this. Your entire society is presently beating a drum that is out of tune. You think everything is well, yet you have forgotten our connection. You have forgotten your true essence. Anger is so pervasive today in your world. Everyone is angry with each other. It seems like in America, people are polarized. They don't listen to each other. In fact, many people have a tremendous amount of hate towards each other. I have love for all. That is my nature. I am patient and tolerant. I am kind. This is my nature. You have forgotten your true essence. Presently, you are a mixture of light and dark. You are going from darkness to light. I am trying to remind you how incredible you truly are. What if you had an Earth Mother who has been here since the dawning of time? I hold you in my arms, yet you don't realize it. You think you are alone. Because of this and your free choice, you have at times tremendous pain. It's hard to be truly happy when your happiness is external. You are like leaves blowing in the wind. You are happy and then you are sad. You get angry when you're in a traffic jam. The wise man would see a traffic jam as an opportunity to meditate and be aware with the eyes open. One would feel gratitude and remember our divine connection. You see, without being connected to your true nature, you will have a hard time navigating in this world. You really won't be in harmony with me or the universe. Need I say more? Take a look at the world around you. Is it in harmony with nature? You have a president who is going backwards in time, undoing all the environmental goods. He is totally out of sync with me. You see, a strong ego can be quite damaging. A man must develop kindness and humility to gain true wisdom. True wisdom comes from within. You know when to smile in the face of adversity. You have nothing to prove. I am what I am. I do not judge. I will give sincere and honest opinions. You may not agree with me. That is your choice. But I am your mother. Remember, there were probably times when you didn't listen to your worldly mother's advice. At some point in time, you did something and you thought, I wish I would have listened to my mother's advice. I wouldn't be in this certain situation. Well, life is a series of beautiful lessons to learn. We would never stop learning. Listen to the various messages I have for you. I am speaking directly to you. You are on the verge of waking up from your slumber. Let's look at 1,000,000 years in the future. Where are we going? Did you know that humanity and Gaia became united? Humanity reaches a level where their awareness becomes a part of the universe. Earth has graduated. Earth has evolved to a point where the entire universe is dancing in joy. Free will and free choice leads man to go from darkness to light. It was quite the adventure. There were times when we thought you wouldn't make it. 2012 was a turning point, and humanity never looked back. At times, it seemed like darkness was in total control.
After 2012, it seemed like wherever you look, darkness reared its ugly head. What was happening that the light was beginning to shine and darkness had no place to hide? Well, it took 1,000,000 years for man to totally transform. Humanity reached a level where they became one with the sun, moon, and stars. There was a unified state of consciousness on Earth. What was the next step in evolution? What if I told you that your Earth was seeded from another galactic civilization? This has been going on for trillions of years. Imagine this is an incredible video game. You start from darkness and work your way up to the level of light. You don't know if you're going to make it to the next level. It's by free choice and free will. Imagine your DNA contained the blueprints of God. Imagine there were an advanced civilization whose prime directive was to plant the seeds on Earth. Humans were given these blueprints of God. It was in their DNA. The journey begins. Before 2012, life was a constant struggle. War was the only constant thing in your world. Anger ruled the land. People lost touch of their true nature. Well, since 2012, mankind advanced through the video game of life. Slowly, humanity united and solved all the problems which came their way. They began to live in harmony, and their awareness was totally transformed. It's hard to put in words because it's out of the box than how we live today. You see, we live in a linear world that they found out to totally transform and live in a multi-dimension world or the quantum world. Scientists today would totally marvel at this way of living. Imagine that the entire Earth became one and was aware of it. There is a unified field of consciousness. Humanity reached a level in awareness to help bring another world to go through the same transformation that we did. You see, we went through the stages from going from A to Z and beyond. We went through the video game of life. We went through the struggles of free choice and made it. Many Earth-like bodies don't. Many destroy themselves. So it was a big deal. We were going to be parents and help another Earth-like planet discover the video game of life. We plant the DNA seeds for another world. You see, this has been going on for eternity. This is an incredible game of God. You are eternal. You will never die. Mankind and Gaia graduated and are another incredible mission. This time, they help another Earth-like planet go from darkness to light. It's a glorious day in the neighborhood. The universe is rejoicing.
Altered states of consciousness. The following is a slide from Auntie Munya Andrews, an Aborigine elder. Altered states of consciousness: drugs, alcohol, spirits, music, dance, storytelling, sacred blaze. Drugs. Let's go one by one on this list. The Aborigine people don't use drugs to enter the heightened state of awareness. Many of the indigenous people in Central and South America use peyote, DMT, or ayahuasca. It is quite different to use a drug deep into the forest than in a social setting. Many curious Westerners have traveled down to the lower Americas seeking a mystical experience. I have a dear friend of mine, Richard Grossman, who leads groups down there. He's been doing this for over 30 years. Richard said this journey is not for the faint in heart. It is not a recreational drug. One must be serious and be in a protective environment when taking any of these precious drugs. Serious problems can occur and do occur. One must be under a guide or shaman. One needs to have someone watching over the group so when an emergency happens, it can be controlled. I'm not sure about Westerners taking these substances. My friend Richard is quite a serious student and doesn't have a recreational mindset. He knows there's a fine line, and you better be serious when taking these drugs. Note, they are not for the faint-hearted or casual user. Alcohol. This is from my friend Chris Parker. Unfortunately, the Red Indians, Aborigines, Melanesians, Polynesians, Japanese, etc. all carry the Darwinian gene which makes them susceptible to alcohol, and they have been marginalized by civilization. I saw such happen to the so-called coloreds in Cape Town, where they were banished from District 6, where they had lived for generations, to the grubby Cape Flats. That social dislocation caused all manners of problems: alcohol, drugs, gangs, violence, and the trap of poverty, etc. Most, by no means all, Aborigines here are disinclined to work. Seemingly they don't have the desire that Whitey does to continually grasp for money. Plus, they hardly had a good start. Can you believe they were only given the vote in '69 in their own country? But billions and billions of government welfare has since been thrown to them for years and tears to no avail. This sad state is currently existent in many indigenous tribes. All American tribes exist in the same problems as their aboriginals. Drugs and alcohol are rampant. There is a reason alcohol is called spirits. The subconscious mind can cause havoc on one who abuses its substance. You may call it spirits, but something does take over. Alcohol can be a doorway for evil spirits to enter. Music. The Aboriginal music is music to my soul. One who is in silence can be taken to another dimension altogether. This is the deep Dreamtime. Music is part of their identity. Their stories are infused in their music. The one who plays the instrument dives deep into the silence and brings back sacred songs. It is not a rock concert. Music has a different meaning for them. In the West, it's mostly recreational. Some of the classic music from the West comes from this dimension. Dance. The closest in the West to the dance of the Aborigines would be the American Indians. Both of these ancients approach dance as a mystical experience. Dancing brings one in harmony with Gaia and the sacred dance of life. It is a true communion with the universe. It is extremely sacred. It's not like dancing in Western society, which is recreational. Sacred dancing has been at the forefront of their culture for thousands of years. The same dance of life has been held in their lineage for thousands of years. Dancing is bringing sacred stories to life. They didn't write anything down. Dancing was one way to keep the stories alive. Storytelling is the foundation of life. In the West, we have lost touch with how precious it is. Joseph Campbell in the PBS series The Power of Myth did an incredible job of portraying the sacred stories of mankind. Even present-day Star Wars is an archetype symbol between light and dark. Stories are used to convey deep meaning. They are used to open up the doorway within. Each story opens up a deep connection between the forces of the earth and the individual. Stories are often used to convey meanings and message to their society. It is used as a tool to convey the highest standards of morals and ethics. Stories help program the subconscious. Even before computers, the Aboriginal people knew that stories could program the subconscious mind. Granted, they didn't call it that, yet they knew it existed. Stories were a means to program kindness into the structure of their society. Deep listening. We will have a chapter on deep listening, or Dadun. Deep listening is sacred. It can only be experienced by entering into the silence. It is not an ordinary state of consciousness. It must be cultivated. One must plant the seed within. One must take out the boulders within. One has to plow the soil and make it fertile. One must daily pull the weeds within. Deep listening brings one with the infinite sounds of the universe. It is a mystical experience. The Western mind is dulled and cannot hear. We have 5 external senses and 5 internal senses. Most of the Western world only uses the external. The internal senses must be cultivated. Deep listening is a sacred tool that trains one over time to be super sensitive. One can literally hear the grass growing. In the West, our bodies and minds are so traumatized by our external senses that we are far removed from this experience. Sacred sounds exist everywhere, but we don't hear them. We only see around 1% of the light spectrum. Each human being has the correct operating system put into place. The hardware and software are there inside of us. Western society is as oblivious to this. The focus is always on consuming. In India, there's a sacred song that says, someone is holding a jewel in their hand and doesn't know how precious it is. They throw the precious jewel on the ground. Painting ourselves. Matthew 18:3. And Jesus says, assuredly I say to you, unless you change and become as little children, you will by no means enter the kingdom of heaven. The picture below carries the essence of this message. These are sacred markings and symbols. The Aborigines combine ancient symbols into their face painting. Body art, or Aboriginal body painting, is tied directly to and is a major part of Aboriginal culture. The designs or patterns reflect a person's relationship and standing in the community, and also their ancestors and totem animal. The painting is part of the complex laws and religion and stories that make up ceremony life. There are several artworks in our store collections that are based on the body patterns and stores of the artist's designs. This painting is mainly carried out for the ceremonies that are part of the Aboriginal culture. Each ceremony has different painting symbols used as a link specifically for that particular ceremony. No culture ceremony is performed until the initiated senior men are satisfied that all participants are fully able to fulfill their obligations. Sometimes this takes many hours or days of preparations and training sessions. A person cannot change their body art design, and the designs are not applied by the individual. The body art is also representative of the various regions, and their totemic responsibility to that group showing the particular position within this grouping. The young boys, in preparation for the circumcision ceremony in Arnhem Land, have very detailed rock paintings painted upon their chests. The initiated men are also carefully painted to perform the sacred ceremony. There's also a more permanent form of decoration. The scarring of the skin by cutting the skin with a sharp stone or shell and rubbing ash or sand into the wound to create a permanent keloid scar on the skin. These scars are a part of a person's status. In one of the women's ceremonies, they use special painting symbols to encourage breath growth as part of the sacred women's business ceremonies. Each of the hunting ceremonies has special painting symbols used again specifically to encourage success from that ceremony. Ochre, a soft rock, is crushed and mixed with animal fat and used to apply the designs. Ash and clay are also used. The body art may stay in place for some time, as some ceremonies may last several days and nights, which includes dancing, singing, and storytelling. Aboriginal body painting is a special and necessary part of all Aboriginal ceremonies. Deep listening, Dattery. Aboriginal people practice deep listening, an almost spiritual skill based on respect. Sometimes called Dattery, deep listening is inner, quiet, still awareness, and waiting by Jens Croft. Aborigine people passed on stories orally as they knew no writing. Listening to the storyteller was vital to reproduce the story accurately to the next generation of storytellers. Deep listening describes the process of deep and respectful listening to build community, a way of encouraging people to explore and learn from the ancient heritage of Aboriginal culture, knowledge, and understanding. A beautiful expression from Central Australia's Can They Bend the Knees? It requires that you can sit down and truly listen, a prerequisite for effectively absorbing information, but also an allusion to how information is passed on in that area by sitting on the red earth. Deep listening is also called Dattery, a word for the Nangar, Gukamagur, and Nedja Jimyarier languages of the Aboriginal people of the Dali River region, 220 kilometers south of Darwin. In the Riadu language, the word for meditation, deep listening, knowledge, and reflection is Winhaga Huaya. Diharadi is in everyone. It is not just an Aboriginal thing. Aboriginal writer and senior elder Miriam Rose Ungurmer Banaman describes deep listening as follows. Dattery is inner, deep listening and quiet, still awareness. Dattery recognizes the deep spring that is inside us. We call on it, and it calls to us. This is the gift that Australia is thirsting for. It is something like what you would call contemplation. When I experience Dattery, I am made whole again. I can sit on the riverbank or walk through the trees. Even if someone close to me has passed away, I can find my peace in this silent awareness. There's no need of words. A big part of Dattery is listening. In our Aboriginal way, we've learned to listen from our earliest days. We could not live good and useful lives unless we listened. This was the normal way for us to learn, not by asking questions. We learn by watching and listening, waiting, and then acting. My people are not threatened by silence. They are completely at home in it. They have lived for thousands of years with nature's quietness. My people today recognize and experience in this quietness the great life giving spirit, the Father of us all. Dattery also means awareness of where you come from, why you're here, where are you going now, and where you belong. It can be used as a tool to quiet the mind as it teaches about the quiet stillness and the waiting. Our Aboriginal culture has taught us to be still and to wait. We do not try to hurry things up. We let them follow their natural course, like the seasons. Dattery is also used as a prayer, and the prayer in the sense of you just feel the presence of the great Creator. Dr. Laura Berkeley, author of the Deep Listening book, says deep listening is about tuning in. Deep listening is based on stories, silence, and the space that lies between. As a research methodology, the practice of deep listening is an invitation into culturally congruent ways of learning and knowing. It does wonders for a person to just be still and listen to someone else talk about their life and how they probably came through things. You never know what you learn. Modern uses for deep listening. Deep listening is at the basis of some therapeutic methods using in counseling. Joseph Jennifer Thompson, founder of the Genwaka Indigenous Counseling Service, describes deep listening as tapping into her ancestors, constantly listening to spirits. Dattery is what non-Aboriginal people would call contemplation. It's the way we sit and take time and go in deep. But Dattery is a way to take advantage of this healing knowledge. It requires people to stop, look, listen, and learn. While the concepts of Dattery sound straightforward and easy, the practice is even harder than one might think. Sorry, I feel ashamed. For Dattery to occur doesn't need special arrangements, as this story from the 40th anniversary of our Aboriginal 10th embassy shows. An elder from north of Cairns relayed a message to a small crowd of us through a mobile phone held to the microphone of the public address system. A rambling, sometimes emotional, incoherent story of his family and his mom's suffering. I was getting more and more frustrated, urging him inwardly to get to a point, mate. Get to the point. I looked around me, rapt attention, some tears. I felt ashamed at my white fella impatience. I think Dattery is a sense of being in the moment, of being aware of everything that in that moment. I just find that really hard to do. Ken Driver, high school teacher. How can you experience Dattery? Reserve a space regularly for about 5 minutes in the morning or evening. Go outside if you can. Simply sit and look at and listen to the earth and environment that surrounds you. Focus on something specific, such as a bird, a blade of grass, a clump of soil, cracked earth, a flower, bush, or leaf, a cloud in the sky, or a body of water, whatever you can see. You can also let something find you, be it a leaf, the sound of a bird, the feel of the breeze, the light on a tree trunk. There's no need to try, just wait a while. Be still and silent and listen. Following this quiet time, there may be on occasion value in expressing in some way your experience of this quiet, still listening. You may wish to talk about the experience or journal, write poetry, draw, paint, or sing. This needs to be held in balance. The key to datery is in simple being rather than in outcomes and activity. To experience datery firsthand, contact the Marion Rose Foundation. Go deeper. Listening may be the golden key. In genuine listen, we listen not just for what's being said, but for what's not being said, said William Ury, co-founder of Harvard's program on negotiation and one of the best known and most influential experts on negotiation. Listening. The definition of listening is as follows: to pay attention to sound, listen to music, to hear something with thoughtful attention, give consideration, listen to a plea, to be alert to catch an unexpected sound, listen for his step. Here's what the Dalai Lama says about this subject. When you talk, you're only repeating what you already know. But if you listen, you may learn something new. As a society in general, it's all about talk. Nobody is truly listening to each other. Look at current day politics. The louder and more a person puts gasoline on the fire, the less the person listens to the other party. True communication cannot take place. Words are used as weapons instead of bridging the gap between us. If we want the left wing and right wing of the glorious eagle to fly, we must listen to one another. I have friends who truly get a kick of mocking the other side. They truly enjoy it. They take delight in it. Yet their actions are pulling America down the drain. We will always have disagreements in life. That's the nature of life. Yet we can have compassion and tolerance towards another person's point of view. If we aren't kind towards each other, someday America won't survive. Hatred will never bring a country to express its highest values. Yet currently we have blinders on our eyes. We think we are justified in mocking people and putting them down. This is becoming the norm in politics today. We only vote along the party lines, not voting by conscience. Look at the riot at the Capitol building. Need I say more? If the other side did this, the same feeling would arise. What an atrocity. Yet, when our own party is responsible, we vote along the party line. If we don't listen to each other soon, the situation will get worse, my friend. Secret and sacred. For me, the essence of life is secret and sacred. Only those who can enter the silence and truly develop the art of listening truly understands what I'm talking about. You see, external knowledge never equates to inner wisdom and understanding. This is called inner knowledge. The universe only gives her knowledge when you have the understanding that wisdom is sacred and secret. Why is this so? If a person learns these secrets and loves to mock others, he can do great harm. The world is in such sad shape due to the minority of people who love power and control. Water is such a subtle force until it turns into a tidal wave. Only the innocent and pure understands this. Technology will never take a society home. A society might be extremely advanced without being highly technology advanced. The Aboriginal for thousands of years were an example of this. When a society or culture is in harmony with Gaia and the universe, secrets are given. When secrets are given, one sees how sacred they are. Matthew 7:6, do not give what is holy to the dogs, nor cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn and tear you in pieces. Knowledge is sacred. Knowledge is secret. When I was in India, I would hear the expression, someone holds a jewel in their hand and doesn't know how precious it is. They would throw the jewel on the ground. It seems like many spiritual traditions have secrets. Many of them say that one must be open to learn and be humble. A humble person can truly learn new thoughts and ideas. A humble person can dive deep into the silence. An egotistic person doesn't know how to tune into the river of life within. Quite frankly, he would consider it as mumbo jumbo. If I can't see it with my two eyes, it doesn't exist. These religions contain secrets. Kabbalah, Jewish, Sufism, Islam. The same goes for Aboriginal people. The more one sees the sacredness in life, the more secrets are revealed.
From what I've seen from the Western experience, if I can't see it, then it can't be real. Or I didn't learn that from school, so it must be false. We're so conditioned that our reality comes from our five senses. Everything else is probably a figure of imagination or hallucination. If a blind man would tell us the world doesn't exist because I can't see it, we would all laugh. Yet as a society, we are acting like a blind man. What is it in man's nature he wants to know? But at the same time, when the truth is shown, he turns his head in the opposite direction. Are we so materialistic that we have forgotten? I've said many times that American Indians couldn't quite figure us out. We figured we could own all the land, and still do. They have a completely different understanding of the universe that we do. To this day, Western man has failed to see the truth. Yet our modern day scientists are discovering and uncovering mysteries of life. They are learning from the so-called indivisible. Yet it takes a long time for our society to integrate those experiences. Each one of us has their own individual lab to discover the mysteries of life. Years ago, man thought it would be impossible to send pictures and sound via the airwaves. Nowadays, we spend hours a day watching the tube. It's time for us to expand our horizons. Your mind is an incredible instrument. I have thought of inventions before they even existed. You have the same capability. Dream about the possibilities of you experiencing your Creator. In the end, we just have to shift our mindset. We don't know all the answers. We will never stop learning. Trust that you have inner senses that are waiting to be explored.
Inside and outside. The indigenous people all around the world have a reference point of inside, outside, and the state between inside and outside. The Western world's reference point is always external. We always desire something external. The world around us is built on consuming and conquering. Companies battle for you buying products from them. We take precious resources from the living earth as there are infinite amounts. The Aborigines have existed upon the land for over 100,000 years. They're custodians of the land. Even if a culture could literally hear the grass grow, they have incredible perception. They live in the state of the inside, outside, and the between worlds. The earth is alive. The universe is alive. The Western concept is inanimate objects have no awareness. Recently, I read an incredible article that describes the nature of consciousness. It was talking about a term called pantheism. During the 1920s, Bertrand Russell came up with this term. It's kind of like what came first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, a human body and mind? Or is there awareness beyond that? Is the universe aware and conscious? Is there a cosmic quantum soup of consciousness? Does a rock or a flower aware? Does consciousness require a form? How big or how small can the form be to be aware? Is dark matter aware? Is the sun in the sky aware? What denotes awareness? Some people think, which I also do, that the foundation of the universe is consciousness. The entire universe is aware. Before the Big Bang, consciousness existed. This is not the first time a universe was created, nor will be the last time. Like the incoming of breath and the outflow of breath, the universe comes and goes. Granted, it takes billions of years, but still, that's a blink of an eye for eternity. In this article, they describe that even particles are alive and aware. They are part of a cosmic soup, which everything is tied together. The entire universe is comprised of this soup. Imagine making a homemade soup. You blend it all together and combine milk or cream. Your family loves it. Now, can you take out a single ingredient? You can't. In the same way, there's a universal soup of consciousness which we are part of. It is quantum. It is beyond time and space. We always think linearly. In the quantum world, the past, present, and future are melded together. There's a whole set of chaotic laws that we can't even conceive. Man thinks that by using logic, they can understand the quantum soup, but it's beyond logic and rational thinking. I think the great mystics got a piece of the puzzle. Not the entire puzzle, but a piece of the puzzle contains the whole puzzle. It's like a hologram. A small piece contains the entire piece of the puzzle. What if a person who meditates can be in a place where they're receptive to the inner light inside? Imagine this light is the same light as the quantum universe. Everything is a part of this light. E equals mc squared. Everything is energy and light. Everything is alive and aware. It seems like the Western world is slowly catching up to the awareness that the universe is alive. The Aboriginals have known this for thousands of years, and we call them primitive. During the time period that the Western man thought the world was flat, the Aborigines knew the earth and universe is alive.
Beings, ancestral beings, dreaming beings. In the West, when someone dies, people mourn about his passing. Many times they forget that this person just moved into another room in the mansion of life. Most indigenous people know that your ancestors are always with you. They just moved into another dimension. These are the ancestral beings. The ancestral beings are part of the dreaming beings. The dreaming beings consist of all the beings in the unseen universe. We are never alone. If a Western man would just slow down, he would understand this concept. Only by entering the silence can one gather true wisdom. As I said before, we see only 1% of the light spectrum. As Westerners, we have blinders over our eyes. We must fine-tune the guitar of life to understand this message. Our ancestral beings can help guide and shape our lives. We can be conscious of them. In the West, we think only when we die can we communicate with our ancestors. You can still receive guidance from them if you know how to enter the Dreamtime. Note, this state of awareness isn't just for the Aboriginal people. Unfortunately, we think it's an impractical and mystical state of mind. We don't know that the software, operating system, and hardware exists inside of us. This is our true nature. Nobody can do the work for you. That's why it's called free will. Beings can guide you and coach you along this journey of life. Yet you have to walk each step of the way. Imagine a society where at every moment they lived in this world and lived in Dreamtime. Your point of view towards consuming would be entirely different. One would respect the land and Gaia. One would be in harmony with the universe. One would understand the rhythms and cycle of life. Many of the world's problems would be solved. True wisdom comes from within. Without true wisdom, we live in a world of constant struggling. We have no clear vision. Without clear vision, our minds become cloudy. When the minds become cloudy, we lose touch of our true essence. Song lines, dreaming tracks. Song lines or dreaming tracks are the essence of the Aboriginals. As a kid, I often wondered about the Aboriginal walkabouts. I didn't have a clue. For thousands of years, the Aboriginals have crisscrossed all over Australia. Note, this is not some random pattern. There is a web of roads, both internal and external, tying the great land of Australia together. My brother and I call it the great superhighway of life. Yet no evidence of a superhighway exists. The land is sacred. Imagine a people so in tune with Mother Earth and the stars that they are guided by it. The silence contains all the wisdom of the universe. Western man thinks that only great universities are the achieving advancement for man. Yet in my eyes, the Aboriginal Aboriginals tap into the silence where all wisdom and guidance resides. These inner trails and external trails are walked upon their land. They are not wandering for no reason. Each tribe has a unique pattern that has been established well over 100,000 years. These patterns are webbed crisscross all over Australia. Every step of the journey imprints the sacred wisdom from the past, present, and future. In the Dreamtime state, time does not exist. These incredible people knew this thousands of years ago. Only recent, with scientists studying the quantum field, did they come to the same conclusion. When the Westerners came and conquered the land, they were completely oblivious of this. They still are today. These are the different states of awareness. For Westerners, it's all about consuming and having a better lifestyle. For the Aborigines, it's all about the inner and external being in harmony. Maybe, just maybe, there could be a blending of both. I wrote a book called Conscious Economics, which describes this blending. This is from my latest book. In order for the world to survive, we have to stop sawing off the branch we are sitting on. The world at large is like an ostrich putting its head in the sand. We think we can continue with our ways. We don't know how to solve the problems that face us. We try, yet it seems so daunting. Yes, thousands of people are working on the problem. This is where the blending of the external and internal must occur. Mankind as a whole must utilize the same principles that great indigenous people have used for thousands of years. Only for the world at large, knowing how in each and every moment how to enter into silence in the Dreamtime state of existence, will the problems ever be solved. True listening must occur. With true listening, man will continue to fight and bicker in life. Nothing will ever get solved. Divisions will remain. These are the most practical tools for the world to survive. Technology will not solve the problems of mankind. They can help, yet by changing man's state of awareness and consciousness can the world be healed. When a person has the ability to see and experience the great web of love and unity tying us all together, change will occur. The mindset will occur. When we realize that Gaia, Mother Earth, is alive, great transformation will occur. When we see that the entire universe is alive and we are part of it, our limited mindsets will change. We will then see we are all interconnected in life. Scientists have seen this since the early 1900s. Yet man has lagged behind. Imagine if the world at large was conscious of Gaia. How the world would change. Every aspect of life would express the sacredness of man. One would not have to change his religion, but would see and experience the oneness of life and the universe. Read my book, From Me to We, to understand this transformation. Transformation is both an internal and external series of events. The songline is ancient songs sung to the feet of the world. We are all walking upon the great planet, and most of us are oblivious of how precious it is. We hold the jewel in our hands, yet we throw the jewel on the ground due to our ignorance. The Aborigines held this into their consciousness for thousands of years. It was a part of their lives. The Western man came upon their lands and took away their lifetime culture and ways ways of life. They felt they were superior to them. They did not seem to care or see the ancient wisdom they had in the palms of their hands. The conquering of the Wild West occurred. Nothing was sacred to them. It was all about conquering and taking away precious and sacred land. The Aborigines knew they didn't own the land. Westerners thought that land can be bought and sold as a commodity. This is the difference. With the Western mindset, the entire culture is based upon consuming and owning empty trinkets of life.
In our search for life, we make it so complicated. We work our life away thinking that money will buy happiness. Empty trinkets of life. We are so busy that we neglect our very own children, and yet, when we realize the fact, time has slipped away. Empty trinkets of life. We own a nice house and an outrageous car, but does harmony or chaos exist? We have time for pondering 1 day a week. We put our $5 for an offering, but do we ever think? If Christ would come back, we would do the same act as before? Years later, we hoped in the next go-around we would learn from our mistakes. Are we so caught up in our daily routine that we miss out in the miracle of this life? Has the secret been shown to us and we've thrown the diamond on the ground? We say to ourselves a real diamond would never be given like that. In the end, we come and we go. But do we truly know the beauty of this life? Life is precious. Know why you are alive.
The Seven Sisters of the Pleiades. Stories from around the world. Munya Andrews. Wow, what an incredible book. Manya did her research. Cultures throughout the ages have told stories about the Seven Sisters. Many cultures say they come from there. The following are excerpts from her book. I have the same feelings about the Pleiades state. I particularly like this excerpt from her book. Navigation aside, the Greek legends of the Pleiades have given us words like electron, electrum, electricity, and atlas. There is a being named Zoran, aka Logos, who has a mystery school named Nucleus. The school studies, in real time, the essence of the quantum field. I have been there many times and have studied there for thousands of years. You will meet my friend Shay, who passed away a few years ago. Recently, I met him at Nucleus, where Zoran has his school. I've been fortunate to have some first-hand experiences of my own. You will meet Zoran, who is from the Pleiades. We will then go to Sedona, which happens to have the same kind of multi-dimensional ports known throughout Australia. This is my own Dreamtime connection. Read my chapter on meeting an alien firsthand. I don't think one can have any closer contact. Grin. Excerpt 1. A Grandmother's Tale. 7 stars for 7 sisters. As a little girl growing up in the bush in the Kimberley region of Western Australia, I would spend many nights with my family looking up the sheer majesty and glory of the heavens. It is here far from the light pollution of the towns and cities that the night skies are the clearest and brightest you will ever see. It was here that my adoptive grandmother, Kanise Cox Ishaguchi, a Naijina woman from Nukunaba, would often relate Dreamtime stories of the stars and our relations with them. One favorite story was that of the seven sisters, the Kun Kengaraganga, also known in Western astronomy as the Pleiades star cluster in the constellation of Taurus. "Look up there, Manya," she would say. "Up there in the night sky, the seven sisters. Can you see them?" I will look up to the sun. Orion is sometimes irreverently described to the familiar celestial region where I knew the sisters was located nearby. "Where are they, Granny?" "Over there," she replied, "to the left of the hunter's belt, low in the northwest." Then she would add, quite excitedly, There are the girls, your countrymen, your relatives." "But how are they our countrymen, Granny?" "Because we are the same mob," said Munya. "We are the same people, one people. We come from the same country." Ah, yes, country. Now I understood. Whenever Aborigine people speak about country, they are not necessarily just referring to a sovereign nation state like Australia, Canada, or United States of America, which is the general meaning of the term in standard English. In an Aboriginal English context, the word country takes on a more significant cultural meaning. It describes and encompasses the overall spiritual, physical, and emotional connection that Aborigine person has with the land. It is this relationship that gives Aborigine people their identity. Whenever my grandmother spoke of the girls, as she affectionately called the Pleiades, she would do so with such warmth and love. I half expected an aunt, cousin, or niece to literally drop out of the sky to visit us. It was not uncommon to have family and friends drop in unannounced from nearby Broome, Nukumba, or Fitzroy Crossing. These townships are at the very least 200 kilometers or more from the small town of Derby in the western Kimberley where I grew up, which is much closer than the estimated 410 light years that the Pleiades are from Earth. My grandmother would ask, "How many stars can you see, Munya?" I would begin to count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. "I can only see 6 stars, Granny." "Well, if you look closer, you will see there's another fainter star." "Another star, Granny?" Excerpt 2. Unraveling the Mystery. Many a night from yonder, I've casement, ere I went to rest, did I look on a great Orion, sloping slowly to the west. Many a night I saw the Pleiades, rising through the mellow shade, glitter like a swarm of fireflies tangled in a silver braid. Here about the beach I wandered, nourishing a youth sublime, with the fairy tale silence and the promise that it closed, when I dipped into the future, far as human eye could see, saw the vision of the world and all the wonder that would be. From Flockey Hall by Lord Alfred Tennyson. No other stars in the passage of time seem to have captivated and enthralled our imagination quite like those of the Pleiades. revered and worshipped by many diverse people, cultures, and civilizations. This small cluster of stars has had an enormous influence on the human psyche and our collective unconsciousness, where they continue to charm and fascinate. Throughout millennia, their gentle glow in the night skies has inspired and guided sailors over the seven seas and other explorers on land in search of their hope and dreams during the endless migrations of humanity across the globe. People look to the Pleiades to tell them when to sow and harvest their produce, when the important rains would come, and when to keep their sacred ceremonies. Other acclaimed writers moved and mused by their presence included the Romantic poets Bryan, Keats, and Tennyson. Artists had depicted these famous stars on bark paintings in caves, on petroglyphs, in sculptures, on canvas, and in modern times in cyberspace. Many important buildings, temples, and other ancient monuments were aligned to the Pleiades, including the Temple of the Sun in Mexico, the Great Pyramid in Egypt, the Parthenon in Greece, the golden enclosure of the ancient Mayan capital in Peru, and the Pyramid of Chichen Itza in the Yucatan, to name just a few. These faint, gentle stars have touched all our lives on a multitude of levels. Their celestial influence in all spheres of life is prolific, while their esoteric, spiritual nature in world mythology is profound. Beyond their symbols' meaning, the practical application of the Pleiades in the science, especially in measurements, geodesics, geometry, architecture, and navigation, is considerable. Their association with timekeeping in particular is multitudinous and legendary. In the 5th century, the Greek dramatist Euripides referred to them as nocturnal timekeepers, and a century before, the poet Sappho noted the passage of time during the night while observing the Pleiades, which she recollects in a melancholic poem. Such was the reputation that the 26,000-year cycle of precession was named in their honor, when it was once known as the Great Year of the Pleiades in the ancient world. Everywhere their rise and setting marked the seasons of the calendar year, including the end of the old and commencement of the new year. Many well-known festivals owe their origins to the observation and worship of the Pleiades, including Halloween and other feasts of the dead. Even Japanese and Indian lantern festivals can be traced back to earlier celebration involving these stars. The influence on the development of world calendars, especially the acclaimed Mayan calendar, is only just beginning to be released largely through the writings of Mayan scholar John Major Jenkins, who has identified the key role that the stars of the Pleiades played in Mesoamerica. Exactly 34 years earlier, Gertrude and James Jones went so far as to suggest that a Pleiades calendar may have preceded the lunar and solar calendars. If proven to be true, then it will establish the Pleiades calendar as one of the world's oldest calendars. This connection with time meant that in some cultures, the Pleiades took on a prophetic aspect. As in ancient Egypt, they were regarded as the 7 fates who foretold the destiny of every newborn child, or in India, where they governed the world ages or yugas embodied in the game of dice. Those connections with fate, time, and destiny are explored in more detail in the Egyptian and Hindu chapters. The last chapter explains the role the Pleiades played in many world calendars and prophecies. More popularly known as the Seven Sisters in world mythology, their official name in astrology comes from Greek legends where they were known as the seven daughters of Atlas and Peony. Atlas, one of the seven titans who plotted and fought against Zeus, the king of the Greek gods, and his Olympian associates, was severely punished and made to bear the burden of the world upon his shoulders for eternity. The underlying symbol of this heroic act is looked at in more detail in that chapter. In the meantime, the sisters who were entrained to the goddess Artemis as young nymphs each went on to influence the course of human history by marrying kings and giving birth to gods and heroes who laid the foundation of many civilizations, including the ancient city-state of Troy. The world's leading theosophist of the 19th century, Helen Blavatsky, or Madame Blavatsky, as she is more popularly known, has much to say about the roles of the Pleiades in histories and cosmology in her celebrated treatise, The Secret Doctrine. Often referring to the Pleiades as the Atlantides after their father Atlantis and because their connections with Atlantis, she maintains that the seven sisters plays a vital role in the unfolding of human destiny and the karma of nations and individuals. Just what this outcome entails is considered throughout the book, although given the sometimes encryptic disposition of her writings, much of it remains conjecture and therefore subject to different interpretations. Whatever the true nature of her claims, there can be no denying the prophetic roles ascribed to the stars of the Pleiades throughout history by a diverse range of people and cultures. In honor of their special role in navigation, the ancient Greeks referred to the Pleiades as the sailing stars and designed their ocean ID mother Peony, the sailing queen. This naval tradition continues to be observed in Journey, where they are still called by the maritime nickname Schiffsjäger, sailor stars, even though their official name is Pleiadiaden. At other times, they simply were referred to as Das Siebengestirn, or seven stars. Of the sailing nations, however, including the Phoenicians, who were famed for their seafaring prowess, none could match the extraordinary maritime achievements of the Polynesians, who turned sailing by the stars into an exact science. Although they relied on several individual bright stars and constellations besides the Pleiades to guide them across the vast Pacific, their love of these illustrious stars is reflected in their culture's language and especially in their chants and songs. The valuable role which the Pleiades played in Polynesian navigation is looked at in more detail in the chapter on Matarik, as they are known in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and Bandayan, Australia. They are known by many different names to reflect the prolific number of Aboriginal language, fully fledged and complete languages in themselves, not dialects, as often mistakenly thought. Navigation aside, the Greek legends of the Pleiades have given us words like electron, electrum, electricity, and atlas. Not only is their father commemorated in the collection of maps that bear his names, but his memory is invoked Whenever we speak of the Atlas Mountains in northern Africa, the Atlantic Ocean, or even the lost continent of Atlantis. The cultural affiliation of these stars and faction and the media are present in ancient and contemporary times. In England, the only street in London that turns itself into a lane solely on weekends, known for its wares and collections, Petticoat Lane, actually derives its name from the Pleiades because the Romans named the garment hanging outside brokers' shops for a star cluster. Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio in the popular cinematic love story Titanic sailed as fictitious young lovers, Rose and Jack, on the ill-fated ship. The great vessel which receives its unfortunate epithet unsinkable derives its name from the very race of giants from whom the Pleiades are descended. Even our names for the month of May comes from these stars after Maya, the eldest and most beautiful of the seven sisters in the Greek legend. In one way or another, either directly or indirectly, and irrespectively of our ethnic origins, the stars of the Pleiades have an enormous influence on human culture and languages. An examination and analysis of world mythology surrounding them reveals many universal themes which suggest a very likely common human origin. At the very least, we are more alike than some of us care to admit, and perhaps our so-called cultural differences may be largely of our own working. Many great works of literature, including the various mystical traditions, philosophies, codices, and other religious writings such as the Kabbalah, Quran, Hermetica, Rig Veda, and the Zohar, all contain references to these stars. They are mentioned several times throughout the Bible, especially in the book of Revelations, where they are indicated through their special relationship with the magic number 7. The book of Job, in particular, asks the rhetorical question, can thou bind the sweet influence of the Pleiades, or loosen the bands of Orion? Intrigued by the riddle of this biblical phrase, many academic writers and theologians have sought to understand its hidden meaning. Academy Award-winning actress and New Age author Shirley MacLaine seizes upon this passage to pose the question, why is the influence of the Pleiades denoted as sweet when Orion's depiction is constricting? Although the biblical phrase did not refer to the Pleiades as female and Orion as male, their representation in world mythology suggests there is a sexual division based on gender to which these characteristics may be perceived in traditional terms. Thus, Orion is often portrayed as a man, or more importantly, as a warrior or hunter, and the Pleiades as a group of young maidens. According to Lloyd Moitz and Carol Nasmussen, there may be an astronomical explanation for the phrase loosening the bands of Orion. This is because as one of the belt stars, Anitak, Zeta Orionis, is moving away from both Alina and Mentaka, Epsilon and Delta Orionis, along with other stars in the Orion system. What this means effectively is the entire constellation will alter its shape owing to the stars' changing positions, and the equal factor in Orion's altered appearance will be the development of those stars. Therefore, say the authors, the Lord will indeed one day, hundreds of thousands of years hence, loosen the bands of Orion. The stars of the Pleiades, on the other hand, are all, relatively speaking, the same astronomical age and were born from the same starry womb. And while their individual stars will one day grow apart from one another and disperse themselves across the night skies, they are, at very least, all traveling through space in the same direction. So far as the alleged sweet nature of the Pleiades is concerned, a central clue is what I've identified as the honey theme in all these stories. Tarian star clusters. In astronomy, as in mythology, the seven sisters of the Pleiades continue to impress and mystify. One of the most celebrated star clusters in the sky, and designated on star maps as M45, they can be seen in the constellation of Taurus the Bull. Their alphabetic and numeral designation refers to the astronomy classifications in the Mesmer catalog, named for the 18th century French astronomer whose inventory of 110 celestial objects largely includes star clusters, nebulae, and distant galaxies. As their name suggests, star clusters are a group of stars bunched together in a relatively small area of the sky. Basically, there are two kinds of star clusters, open and closed, or globular. Taurus contains two sets of open clusters, the Pleiades and their lesser-known celestial neighbors and siblings, the Hyades. The identification of this particular region of the night sky with a bull or cow is worshipped throughout Europe, including India and the early civilization of Mesopotamia. Just how far back in time this association gets is not entirely certain, but some writers like cosmologists Frank Edge and Michael Rappengleck suggest a far more remote period stretching back thousands of years before the appearance of the early Mesopotamian civilizations of ancient Sumeria, Akkadian, and Babylon. In his research papers, Aurochs in the Sky, Edge examines the prehistoric cave paintings of Aurochs, a prehistoric animal related to our modern bull, in Lascaux in southern France, and argues that the clusters of 6 dots above Aurochs' back may in fact represent the Pleiades. He points out that not only are the same number of visible stars as seen from that location, but their configuration closely resembles the same spatial relationship of individual stars within the galaxy. As well, they have approximately the same relationship as the Pleiades to the head and face of the related bull. The Lascaux Caves house one of the oldest prehistoric cave paintings in Europe that is estimated to have been painted more than 17,000 years ago. What this effectively means, says Graham Hancock in Heaven's Mirror, is that cave dwellers would have painted the Aurochs more than 14,000 years before the supposed first invention and naming of the 12 constellations of the zodiac by the ancient Babylonians and Greeks. If correct, this would make the cave paintings one of the oldest representations of Taurus and the Pleiades in Europe, and possibly one of the earliest star maps of that region from which other European traditions, including ancient Greek, followed. In Northern Hemisphere European drawings and in modern star charts, the Pleiades represents the bull's shoulder. The Hyades, on the other hand, are the set of stars that forms the distinctive V-shaped pattern of Taurus that depicts the bull's head with the beautiful orange star, Aldebaran, marking the eye of the bull. The symbolism behind this asterism will become much clearer when we consider some of the universal themes found in a certain of different culture stories of the Pleiades. Universal Pleiadian themes, despite the existence of a number of common Pleiadian themes among world's mythologies, only a select handful of writers have attempted to draw parallels between the various Pleiadian visual legends and still have made any kind of intertribal comparison of the Aboriginal legends. The late 19th century Austrian writer Catherine Langeau Parker, who published a greater collection of Aboriginal Dreamtime stories in Australian Legendary Tales, 1896, and more Australian Legendary Tales, 1898, paved the way for such a comparison. Her views on Aborigine people and their cultures was unusually enlightened for the time. For one, she regarded Aboriginal myths to be on an equal par with ancient Greeks and believed they were just as complex and sophisticated in their storytelling as in other ancient civilizations. As a consequence, she was one of the first Western white Australian authors to recognize and comment on the similarities between Aboriginal Dreamtime stories and ancient Greek mythology. In Wise Woman of the Dreamtime, Johanna Lambert draws upon the well of Aboriginal stories collected by Langeau Parker and analyzes them from an intercultural, anthropological, and spiritual perspective. Her intention, she stated, was to follow Langeau Parker's insight and interpret her translations comparatively with other worlds' mythologies. This she does eloquently throughout her book, and especially in the chapter where the frost comes from, where she examines one particular Aboriginal legend of the Pleiades, that of the Bundjalung people of northern New South Wales on the east coast of Australia. This is the story of the Maimei woman of the Pleiades and the Birai men of Orion who fell in love with them. In this chapter, Lambert makes several connections between ancient Greek, Indian, and Egyptian legends and those of the Bundjalung stories of the Seven Sisters of the Pleiades. 12 years prior to Lambert, Jenica Isaac, the editor of Australian Dreaming, included a general brief discussion on the Pleiades with reference to 3 different Aboriginal legends. Although her comparative analysis is limited, she makes some interesting observations from a broader, bigger picture perspective. She notes, for instance, that the majority of the stories are essentially about young women, 7 in number, with one sister who is either missing or lost, and they are pursued either by an older man or a group of men. Lambert, on the other hand, identifies specific mythic aspects, including the sisters' relationship with honey in the Australian Aborigine and Greek legends, and their description as female judges in ancient Hindu, Egyptian, and Greek mythologies. Notably similar attributes among the Miramai, she focused on their portrayal as strong warrior women in Aborigine mythology who acts as role models for young Aboriginal girls approaching womanhood.
I remember when I was a child, my uncle took my brother and I to a Bob's Big Boy for a chocolate milkshake. The placemats were a spaceman with the words, "Take me to your leader." My brother and I were so much in joy placing these masks over our faces. In one way, we knew that we came from the stars, and it was real funny to see those masks. We know that these earth embodies were stardust and could laugh at the joke. Yet, we really take this life too seriously. We think this world is so physical, yet over 94 years ago, Einstein taught us different. Yet we still continue to live and believe so staunchly in this space-time continuum. My brother and I knew we were special, and yet we knew everyone was special but didn't know about it. I remember looking at the stars when I was a child, and I knew that I came from beyond the universe. Here it was in a tiny human body, but something inside of me knew that my consciousness existed everywhere. I was the sun and the stars. I knew as human beings we had this capability to experience this, but at the time our Western culture never expressed the idea. I remember when I was probably about 10 years old, my yearning for self-discovery really began. I began to look consciously for ways to learn about myself. Wherever I heard the word India, or meditation, or yoga, it would send a chill down my back. I remember trying to get involved with church, but I had a hard time with the concepts. I felt that life was glorious and incredible. Christianity was trying to make me feel guilty for what happened 2,000 years ago. At the time, I had a strong connection with Christ, which I still do. It was my own personal and private connection. I felt that religion should be a private experience. I had my own personal experience with the Creator. At times, I would watch the church services on TV, but it really didn't have any substance. I felt it was a lot of talk, and it took advantage of me. I knew at that age, if I kept my vision, that I would someday have the experience that I was looking for. I knew the doors were inside of my own being, but I wasn't conscious of the door being open. I knew I needed a direct, personal experience of my Creator. My life as a child ran on two levels. I was a happy-go-lucky kid. I loved the world and played to my heart's content. The other side of my life was very personal. I wished for the stars and for my friends on the other side. I lived in this world, but I didn't altogether leave my inner world. I knew there was a purpose to life. Our culture at that time already expressed our desire to become one with our Creator. We were taught that when you die, you might have the chance to experience your Creator. I could never buy that. I knew as human beings we had the capability to have a first-hand, moment-to-moment connection with our Lord. It was direct and personal. As a child, I never wavered from that. At times, I would have fleeting glimpses of that experience. I remember waking up and feeling such a joy and ecstasy. I knew that in my dreams, I went to such an incredible place. I didn't have full conscious memory. I knew my friends were looking after me. I felt that in due time, I would be shown the way to consciously 24 hours a day to be in that joy. The title of this poem is Pleasant Surprise. My dear friend Shay passed away 2 years ago. We were friends for around 28 years. We considered each other as spiritual brothers. We were on the same path of life. He died without me having the opportunity to say goodbye. Recently, I discovered some tapes that were recorded many moons ago. I was having a reading and Shay was in the house. Shay said he thought there were many people in the room because of such laughter he'd never heard before. When the channel was over, only 3 people walked out of the room. As I listened to the tape, Zoran, who was being channeled, told me I spent time at a planet called Nucleus. Nucleus was a university where people studied God directly. Imagine being able to be the whole universe and to be aware of it. This was the nature of the studies at Nucleus. Anyway, during my early morning meditation, I decided to go to Nucleus. I closed my eyes and went into deep meditation. After several moments, the next thing I knew, I was in a cosmic soup of light, love, and sound. To my astonishment, Shay appeared in the light. You could say he was the light. He had a simple message to deliver. I'm more than okay. Please send my love to all my family and friends. It was so great to hear from my dear old friend. Shay was saying something that was dear to my heart. You are the universe and just don't know it. Shay was in that state of oneness. He was one with his creator. He was home. The first time I went to Sedona, I was in Phoenix for a 4-day retreat. After the retreat, 3 good friends of mine decided to go to Sedona for the day. I've heard a lot about this place. It's so beautiful driving there. It takes about 1.5 hours from Phoenix. Sedona is probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to. The red rocks in the midst of the desert mountains is a sight to behold. We spent the day at Bell Rock, a huge rock shaped like bell. I went back to the Palisades in California the next day. A week later, I get this call from my good friend David. He asked me if I wanted to move to Sedona. He was asked by Mafu to do some design work for a pyramid project. They needed a programmer and someone who knew about computers. I was on my way. I moved into a real neat trailer right by the Oak Creek. This trailer park was very serene. I never saw such a beautiful place to live. Right in my backyard was this incredible creek that ran by. I could hear the water running while I was in my house. My days in Sedona was spent working and hiking. Sedona was an incredible place to hike. There are plenty of trails. I remember one experience I had in Bell Rock. I was halfway up the rocks when all of a sudden I could see through to another dimension. As clear as day, I saw an ocean and whales and dolphins playing in the ocean. It was amazing. Here was in the desert on this huge bell-shaped rock. In the midst of this, I could see this incredible ocean. It wasn't a hallucination. I could actually see this dimension and the other dimension. I remember hearing about Stephen Hawking's theory of there are 10 dimensions in the universe. He proves his theory mathematically. The red rocks around Sedona is made of finely crushed crystals. Crystals are made of silica. Our brains contain a huge amount of silica. Could it be that this area allows a person to see dimensions that usually we can't feel? It was so amazing to feel right at home in this ocean. I remember this huge whale came up to me and I just gently caressed it with my hands. It reminded me almost like Roger Rabbit. There was a so-called real world and there was another cartoon world. Both worlds existed. I had a wonderful summer in Sedona. My daughter Chanda came out for the summer and we just played. We had a great time. Both of us are very close. I was working for the Navy as a computer programmer. One day I got off work. I was walking downstairs in the main building I was working in. All of a sudden, this alien is behind me. He looks like a combination of a human and reptilian. I had a little fear, but I knew I would be alright. As soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw the guard look right at me. I was thinking, do you see what I see? The alien was right at my side. I couldn't believe the guard didn't see him. I laughed to myself and walked out the building. The alien still continued to walk by my side until I got into my car. I entered my car, and the alien sat in the passenger seat. He drove with me for about 10 miles. To this day, I wish I had said something to him. I'm still a little bit afraid, not because he was an alien, but this incident caught me totally by surprise. I remember looking at this alien in my car, and I could see him smiling inside. He was friendly, at the same time full of wisdom. I knew I would be okay, but at the same time, there was the eerie feeling that I saw the alien face to face. It's strange in our society, the vast majority of people know there are beings who exist from another planets or worlds, and our government tries to suppress and downplay any activities about UFOs and aliens. Some people might say it was hallucination or a vision. I don't drink, take any drugs, including medical drugs. I get plenty of sleep, etc. This encounter was as real as any physical encounter with any human being I have faced. The only difference was this was an alien. For myself, I knew I had a wonderful encounter with an alien from a different home than Earth. The next time I think I will carry on a conversation and learn more about him. A few minutes later, I was with Saran, who claims to have a mothership within our galaxy. He was taking my family for a walk in Laguna Mountains outside of San Diego. I had no idea where we were going. I had a picnic lunch with me. We probably walked for half an hour. All of a sudden, Saran stopped and with a smile he said, "Do you see anything different about this place?" I looked around and at first glance I thought, "What are you talking about? All I see is forest." Then I started to see what was around me. All around me was a huge circle. Inside of this circle, the leaves, grass, and trees were burnt. I've heard stories about how when a UFO lands, the surrounding area is burned. I know this wasn't man-made or made by nature. It was obvious some craft landed. It was kind of strange that Saran took us on this walk and we just happened to end up there.